Chapter 1651 Undercover in Shung Jing. Shang Daowen shouted, "Who are you?" In fact, he already had some guesses in his heart. Zhang Yi once reminded them that Huaxu country might have been infiltrated by foreign races. Wan Ping, who Zhang Yi killed, was almost certainly from Qingdao Wugu. Then there is a high possibility that there are such people in other areas. This time, they swept the undercovers in the area on a large scale, and they really forced out a king bomb. Shang Daowen was extremely angry, but also a little fortunate. Fortunately, the existence of the other party was discovered early. Otherwise, this latent crisis would sooner or later cause unimaginable disasters to Shungjing district. The thin man laughed. "Who am I, shouldn't you know?" he said sinisterly. He raised his thumb back and pointed at Zhongyu, whose life and death were unknown, and said, "I came to you this time just to inform you. From today on, the Qinling area will be controlled by us. As for this guy, he is not dead yet, but he probably won't live long." After saying this, the communication was directly interrupted. Shang Daowen angrily slammed the table hard, smashing the heavy desk to pieces. Damn it! Shang Daowen wanted to go to Shuilong City immediately to rescue Zhongyu. The two of them have been good friends in the army for many years, and they are also comrades in arms who defend Xinjiang together after the end of the world. They have a close relationship. It is difficult for him to watch Zhongyu die in public or private. However, Shang Daowen soon calmed down. The purpose of the other party deliberately provoking him was probably to make him go to the Qinling Mountains to die. But even if he knew it was a trap, could he not go? Shang Daowen didn't have much time to think. He only thought about it for 5 seconds, took off his military coat and put it on, and then strode out of the office. After a while, he found Meng Yuanjun, the new supreme commander of the Shungjing region. Meng Yuanjun did not fall asleep either, but wore pajamas and leaned on the sofa to read intelligence. Seeing Shang Daowen rushing over, he took off his glasses curiously. "What's wrong, my dear captains?" Shang Daowen said, "There is something very important, and you and Ho Tu must come down to help me make a decision. So please follow me to the Earth Temple first." Seeing Shang Daowen in a hurry, Meng Yuanjun knew that he must have encountered an emergency, so he nodded. Okay. He and Shang Daowen rushed to the Earth Temple together. Late at night, Ho Tu had already fallen asleep, but was still awakened by the maid. She asked Meng Yuanjun and Shang Daowen to enter the Earth Temple. When she saw the two, she was still rubbing her sleepy eyes and asked in an emotionless tone, "It's so late. What's the matter with you coming to me?" Shang Daowen said anxiously, "The Qinling Mountains have been conquered by foreign races." As soon as these words came out, Meng Yuanjun's expression immediately became serious, and even Ho Tu's eyes were cold. Conquered by foreign races? You mean the existence under the Qinling Mountains? Shang Daowen shook his head. No, it shouldn't be them. Although the existence under the Qinling Mountains is not closely related to us, they have no reason to attack us. I think they should be from Qingdao Mist Valley, just like the aliens who attacked Tianhai City. Meng Yuanjun pushed his glasses. Do you mean that we have also found an undercover agent from Qingdao here? Yes, that's what I mean. Now Zhongyu has been defeated by them, and his life or death is unknown. So, he only said half of the sentence, and then looked at Hutu. The meaning is very clear. Whether to rescue Zhongyu, Hutu and Meng Yuanjun have to help make a decision. Hutu heard it and said without hesitation, "It is not easy for the region to train in Ypsilon. If Zhongyu dies in battle, it will be a huge loss for the region. So, go and rescue him." Meng Yuanjun frowned tightly, and of course, he didn't want to see Zhongyu die in battle. However, he still put forward another opinion. Could this be a trap, waiting for you to fall into it? The other party took advantage of this opportunity to attack. It must have been planned. The 36 heavenly gangs just left Xinjiang, and now there are a lot of vacancies in the entire Xinjiang city for high-level aliens. If the two of you leave again, the entire Xinjiang city will be empty. It is very likely that their target is here, Meng Yuanjun said very seriously. If the command hub collapses, then it will be an unbearable price for the entire Xinjiang and even the entire Huaxu country. On the surface, The enemy was faced by the high-level aliens of Huashu country. But whether it is intelligence gathering, logistic supply, or command planning, it is all the responsibility of the professionals of the center. This is why Zhang Yi did not participate in the formulation of the battle plan. He can only fight, but he is not as professional as those professional soldiers in strategy and tactics, as well as the overall planning of the overall situation. This is a war, not as simple as a fight between aliens. Ho Tu said, there is indeed a possibility of a trap. But giving up Zhongyu is equivalent to giving up the entire Qinling Mountains, which we absolutely cannot accept. Therefore, we must send someone to solve this problem. Meng Yuanjun rubbed his chin and said, should we seek support from the outside worlds? Shang Dawen glanced at him. Will he make it in time? Meng Yuanjun smiled slightly. There is one person who will definitely make it in time. That person is naturally Zhang Yi. Who else but him can have the ability to travel through space and travel through the entire Huashu kingdom in the shortest time? Shang Dawen was a little tempted, but after thinking about it carefully, he shook his head. It is the most difficult to let him come. Why? Meng Yuanjun asked puzzled. Shang Dawen said, the previous conflict with Shungjing district has not been resolved. He is unwilling to enter Xingjing city, which means he is still on guard against us. He may not be willing to help him deal with the enemy. What's more, the most dangerous place now is Tianhai City, where he is. As the highest combat power in Tianhai City, he can't leave easily. And there is another very important point. Shang Dawen's gold-rimmed glasses reflected a bright white light. When Xingjing district encounters an enemy of unknown strength, it easily asks for help from the outside world. This will make other districts seriously doubt our strength. Meng Yuanjun spread his hands. Now is a critical moment. If you have these concerns, you will suffer a great loss. Shang Dawen was also hesitant, but he still looked at Ho Tu and asked, Your Highness Ho Tu, what do you think about this matter? Ho Tu raised her head and glanced at him indifferently with her dark eyes. You can make your own decision. If you really want to go to Qinling, Xingjing City will be safe with me. Chapter 1652, Attacking Xingjing. After getting the approval of Meng Yuanjun and Guan Longyue, Shang Dawen left the Earth Temple without any hesitation, took a group of elite soldiers to leave Xingjing City, and immediately headed for Wuyo Valley. Under the night, several fighter planes flew away from the sky of Xingjing City. On the vast snowy land, on a low hill at this time, two figures, one fat and one thin, stood there casually, looking up at the sky. They were wearing very casual clothes. The thin man was wearing a black woolen hat on his head. The thick dark circles under his eyes seemed to be deliberately painted with smoky makeup, but with his pale face, he looked like a dead person who had just crawled out of the morgue. The fat man was tall, bald, and his face was covered with fat, which covered his expression. He looked dull and cold, but his emotionless eyes gave people a feeling of extreme cruelty. The thin man raised his head and watched the fighter planes leave, and then the corners of his mouth slowly curled up. Very good, the guys from Xingjing City were indeed led away by us. Now, I think their base camp must be very empty. Yes, their purpose this time was to lure the tiger away from the mountain, which was an open conspiracy. But they also knew the importance of Jinyuanzi to the Xingjing region. After all, for human forces, the value of an epsilon is unimaginable. Not only is it of current strategic value, but there is also room for future growth. The purpose of the thin man and the fat man is to let the highest level combat power of Xingjing City leave, and then, while the interior of Xingjing City is empty, directly attack. Capture the king first. As long as Xingjing, the current command hub of Huashu country, can be destroyed, this huge country can be turned into a mess. Of course, if we can take this opportunity to kill one or two of Huashu country's top combat forces, it would be even better. The fat man lowered his head and glanced at the thin man and said coldly, Shadow, this may also be a trap. They may give up saving their companions and set a trap for us. The corners of the thin man's mouth curled up with an exaggerated smile, and his eyes were full of madness. He rubbed his fingers. I admit that there is an element of gambling in it. However, Based on our current judgment of the strength of Shungjing district, even if Ho2 and Xidagarba are both here, it is not difficult for you and me to get out. After all, the guy who is known as the first combat force of Huaxi country is a special ability person who can hardly leave Shungjing city. A cold, murderous intent flashed in his eyes. If we can take the opportunity to kill her, we will make a lot of money. The fat man nodded. That makes sense. The thin man's smile became more and more ferocious, and his laughter was accompanied by the whistling north wind and spread far away. Not long after Shang Daowen led a team of strangers to Weo Valley, a strange phenomenon darker than the night appeared outside the southern gate of Xingjing City, a wall that was taller and more magnificent than the Great Wall. The soldiers guarding Xingjing City patrolled a corridor with guns, and suddenly found that a substance that was extremely dark appeared on the distant horizon. A soldier turned his head sharply and saw that on the distant horizon, the edge of the land that stretched for dozens of kilometers, black tentacles rose up. It was like a giant black octopus crawling out of the black tide. Because it was too dark, just looking at it gave people a feeling that their souls were about to be devoured. The huge black tide slowly rose up, like a huge black curtain, and then quickly invaded the huge Xingjing city wall. Beep, beep, beep. The shrill alarm sounded immediately, and the city defense system of Xingjing City had discovered the abnormality here at the first time. What is that? Mobilize the troops. Assemble at the number 13 defense wall. The Longming guards quickly assembled. At this time, the officers and the troops were tense, and the news was also heard by Meng Yuanjun at the first time. Because at this time, Xingjing City was the emptier in history, so the city was under martial law when Shang Daowen left. Meng Yuanjun stood up from behind his desk suddenly. His eyes were cold and terrible, and he murmured, "Chaos's warning has come true." He should have thought of it long ago. If Qingdao Wugu really wants to launch a full-scale war against Huaxi State, then they can hide a black chariot-level alien as a chess piece in Tianhai City. Then how could Xingjing, as the core area of Huaxi State, not have any arrangements? In the previous battle, they did not take action only due to special reasons, but it was not without arrangements. At this moment, Shang Daowen left, and the 36 Tiangang followed Zhang Yi to Jiangnan, and Xingjing City almost became an empty shell. Meng Yuanjun slammed the table and shouted to all the officers in front of him, "Stop the invading enemy at all costs." One of his officers was so nervous that his face turned pale. "Commander-in-Chief, you should move now, because they may come for you." Meng Yuanjun laughed when he heard this. "If they are really coming for me, that's fine. Killing me, Meng Yuanjun, will not destroy Xingjing City. Many people can sit in the position of Supreme Commander." But his eyes were stern. Their real target, the core that they really fear and want to destroy, should be Ho2. Meng Yuanjun waved his hand fiercely. "Don't worry about me. Don't worry about anyone here. Concentrate all the troops and protect the Temple of the Earth. Absolutely, Ho2 must not make any mistakes." Even if he died in the battle, Qin Shigong of Ningqing could come back and take charge of the situation again. Upon hearing this, his subordinates immediately understood everything. Yes, they were also experienced generals. They immediately returned to their respective posts and began to command the city defense forces and Longming guards of the entire Xingjing City to resist foreign enemies. Skytrack number 2, number 5, number 8, all lifted the ban. Space-based weapons are on standby at any time, ready to lock onto the enemy. Love Death launch chamber open. Longming guards number 1, 3, and 9. Evacuate from the front line and assemble at the Earth Temple. No matter what happens outside, you are not allowed to leave. Defending the Earth Temple is your only mission. The lights in the entire Xingjing City were bright at this time, as if it were daytime, and everyone was mobilized. In the Earth Temple, Guan Longyue raised his head as if he had felt something, and his dark eyes seemed to penetrate the layers of veils and the walls of the Earth Temple, looking at the enemy in the distance. Outside Xingjing City, darkness invaded. From the endless darkness, a humanoid being 100 meters tall stepped out, his feet stomping heavily on the snow. Similar beings appeared one after another. Their heights even exceeded the human city wall, and there were hundreds of dark giants slowly and steadily moving towards the city wall. Chapter 1653 Shadow of Destruction. Behind the ramparts of the city wall, behind transparent bulletproof glass, fully armed soldiers held weapons specially designed for aliens and guarded the firing ports. Nowadays, ammunition such as the Origin bullet has become popular, and even ordinary soldiers can pose a threat to aliens. In particular, the Dragon Ming Guard, the first in Huashu country, is equipped with a large number of such ammunition. However, when they faced this unprecedented enemy, a look of fear flashed in their eyes. Shungjing district has been at ease for too long, and even since the end of the world, it has not experienced such a dangerous moment. The fear of death is so real for many recruits for the first time. Pull yourself up. A bearded school officer shouted loudly in the communication channel. Don't forget that your family is behind the city wall. We can't take a step back. Even if we die, we must die on the front line of defending our country. Chinese men would rather die than be cowards. This deafening speech immediately awakened the originally fearful soldiers. It's not wrong to be afraid of death, but now they are protecting the lives of millions of people and Shung. Behind them are their parents, wives, and children. They can die in battle, but they must not retreat. Kill! A soldier roared loudly. When people are afraid to a certain extent, they will turn into anger, which makes them forget fear and life and death. Kill! The shouts of killing shook the sky. Boom! On the long city wall ramparts, guns of various calibers began to fire like thunder, and the yellow light illuminated the sky. The powerful artillery fire shot at the black giants, opening holes in their bodies, but they seemed to be unaware of the pain and continued to move forward without any reaction. At this time, the black giants suddenly began to open their mouths, and in their mouths, a huge red energy ball began to condense rapidly. Hundreds of black giants made such movements in unison. When the soldiers on the city wall saw this scene, they immediately understood what was going to happen. No. Open the protection. The city wall itself has a very strong defensive power, and the defensive aliens in the army immediately stepped forward and opened the protective shield. Various superpowers flashed with colorful colors, blocking all the soldiers. Boom! The black giant spewed out red energy cannons from his mouth. The release of superpowers is the most common means of attack, simple and rough. Hundreds of black giants fired at the same time, like hundreds of heavy hammers hitting the city wall. A large number of protective shields were directly crushed, and the surging power hit the city wall, blasting the more than 10-meter-thick city wall into pieces. A large number of soldiers at the back had no time to react and were directly blown into powder. War is extremely cruel. Such an attack makes it difficult for soldiers on the front line of the war to even preserve their entire bodies. But no one will be sad at this time. Everyone is playing for their lives, and they need to continue fighting. The giants continued to move forward, and the roaring city defense cannons tried their best to spit out artillery fire. The firepower was strong enough to tear the bodies of some giants apart. They fell to the ground, slowly turned into black shadows, and merged into the huge black tide behind them. But more giants still approached the city wall, and then began to attack the heavy human fortress with their huge bodies. In the black tide, the fat man and the thin man stood on the shadows, suspended in the air. The thin man looked at the tragic battlefield in front of him, saw countless human warriors being slaughtered by his black shadow giant, saw the blood flowing into a river, and saw the body parts flying, and a hideous and happy smile appeared on his face. It feels so good to slaughter these ants. Ha 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 ha. He spread his hands and laughed wildly. I remember that these humans also like to kill lower creatures to get pleasure. They cook cattle and sheep with cruel methods and roast ants with magnifying glasses. Sure enough, in this world created by the gods, all creatures are cruel. The fat man frowned in dissatisfaction. He said coldly, Your efficiency is too low, Shadow. We are not here to play war games. Don't forget your mission. If it's later, their reinforcements may arrive. So let me do it. After the fat man finished speaking, he stepped on the black shadow and suddenly took off into the air. He raised his hands high, and between his palms, a terrifying superpower began to gather, forming a silver-white, unstable energy body. Gathering, expanding, and becoming huge. Soon, he lifted a huge energy ball with a diameter of hundreds of meters and jumped into the sky above the city wall. Destruction. The fat man pushed the huge energy ball directly to the city wall. His attack method was extremely simple and did not even need to be named. All the superpower's attack methods, with fancy names, are just to pour out the energy and obliterate the opponent's existence. So the fat man in front of him, the scout's destroy hull, attack method has only a simple name, destruction. The silver sphere fell on the wall of Shung City like a huge moon. The most defensive barrier in Huashu country was swallowed up by the vast energy in an instant. Collapse. The fighting spirit of the hot-blooded boys could not erase the gap in strength between them and the two scouts of Wugu. This is the gap between the Epsilon-class aliens and ordinary humans. This is no longer an existence on the same level of life. Even the Epsilon-class aliens and other humans only look similar in appearance. But in fact, for an existence like Zhang-Yi, from the perspective of combat power alone, there is actually not much difference between ordinary people and ants. The two top aliens joined forces and completely defeated the southern defense line of Shung City in less than a minute. When this news reached Meng Yuanjuan's ears, his face was as pale as the snow outside the window. Plop. With a sound, he collapsed on the chair powerlessly, then raised his head, with a helpless, bitter smile on his face. This is the era of aliens. Even the power of the army is difficult to stop. The faces of the officers next to him were not much better at this time, almost full of despair. Because according to the current situation, these two Epsilon-class beings are obviously strong men of the Black Chariot level. If their goal is to massacre, then they can easily kill almost all the humans in Shung City. After all, Ho-Tu's ability was not known for protection, and she could not stop the two powerful aliens from killing. Even when she was exposed to the enemy, she was at risk of falling. Chapter 1650, 4 Earth God Realm. Commander, the space-based weapons have locked onto the enemy's figure. Should we fire directly? An officer said to Meng Yuanjun with a pale face and lifeless eyes. He looked like a zombie, just reacting mechanically. Meng Yuanjun heard this and suddenly raised his head and shouted loudly, "Absolutely not." But no buts. Meng Yuanjun decisively rejected the proposal. He waved his hand and said, "Space-based weapons are the last trump card for ordinary humans like us. If there is no guarantee that they will work, they must not be used at will. That will only make the enemy defensive." He had a gloomy face and crossed his hands to cover half of his face. They're going for Ho-Tuesday. So, even if we all die, we must leave the order behind and use space-based weapons to help Her Highness Ho-Tu at the critical moment of her battle. Thin Yuying and Fat Miatong stepped into Shung City openly. Everywhere they saw were broken bodies of human warriors. A lot of hot blood was not completely frozen even in the ultra-low temperature of nearly 100 degrees below zero. It seemed like a cold and cruel winter. The south wall of Shung City was covered with large patches of blood-red plum blossoms. Yuying and Miatong had no intention of appreciating such a beautiful view. Yuying smiled and controlled his dark army to kill forward. It has come to this point. Why haven't the strong men of Xinjiang appeared yet? Could it be that they have all left? Yuying's face was full of cruel smiles. If that's the case, I can only kill everyone here. He waved his hand forward, and in the thick black tide, the black tentacles were like the arms of an octopus, and like thousands of spikes, they shot at the city defense army in front. Puff, puff, puff. The bodies of those soldiers were as fragile as straw shields and were easily pierced. In addition, there were also those buildings made of reinforced concrete. Just one blow made half of the city completely quiet, and only the thick blood and dark sticky water flowed out, and then condensed into ice after the heat evaporated. Just when the two decided to start a ruthless killing. In the center of Shungjing City, the young girl who was only in her early 20s suddenly stood up from the floor. Her long black dress covered her delicate body, and her thick black hair fell to her heels. She looked like a doll with exquisite workmanship, and in the palm of her right hand, she was holding a carving knife, and in her left hand, there were two puppets. She looked up and looked into the distance. Although she was hundreds of kilometers away and separated by a large number of buildings, she could see the faces of the two people clearly. Observe their shapes. Just this one glance made Yuying and Mietong feel an invisible pressure enveloping them at the same time. The air seemed to become sticky, and the two of them felt a strong discomfort in their bodies at the same time. Yuying's pupils shrank suddenly, and there was almost no black in his eyes, most of which were white, which looked extremely hideous and weird. Soon, he looked at Mietong next to him and laughed. "Hey, do you feel it? A very powerful force is enveloping us." Mietong still had a cold face. The legendary Huaxi country that controls the power of curse is the strongest. It turns out she is still here. The two looked at each other, and then smiled grimly. Hehehe, that's great. If we can destroy the top fighting force of Huaxi country before the next war starts, it will undoubtedly be a great achievement. The laughter of the shadow became more and more weird, like a night owl screaming in the midnight wind. He controlled the shadow and took him and Mietong to run wildly towards the direction of the Earth Temple. At this time, outside the Earth Temple, tens of thousands of fully armed aliens held weapons and their superpowers were fully activated, nervously waiting for the arrival of the enemy. But at this moment, a word from the maid of the palace came from the Earth Temple. His Highness Ho-Tu has ordered that everyone evacuate immediately and are not allowed to approach the Earth Temple within a radius of 30 miles. The Longming guards who heard the order were all dumbfounded. The Earth Temple is located in the center of Shungjing City. Retreating 30 miles is equivalent to completely giving up the central battlefield of Shungjing. Ho-Tu, is she going to face two enemies of at least the Black Chariot level alone? Although they were surprised, no one dared to question Ho-Tu's order. They had already prepared for death in their hearts, but they also understood that even if they all died in battle, they could only consume a part of the opponent's strength at most. Obviously, Ho-Tu thought that this sacrifice was of no value. If it were the 36 heavenly gangs, they might still be able to play some role. Immediately, all the members of the Dragon Roaring Guards evacuated. Ho-Tu stood in the Earth God Temple and said to the maids outside the door, "You should also withdraw." The two maids bowed their heads respectfully. "Yes, Your Highness." Ho-Tu's safety did not need people of their level to worry about it. Staying would only be a foolish expression of loyalty, but it would be meaningless. Soon after, the entire Earth God Temple became quiet. The tide of darkness poured into this area, and it was noticed that there was a dead silence here, but the shadow and the destroying hall too, but they dared not be careless. After all, they knew that they were facing the most powerful and mysterious fighting force of Huaxi State. The two slowed down 10 kilometers away from the Earth Temple and looked at the area from a high altitude in the distance. There were no tall buildings near the Earth Temple. No one was allowed to look down on Ho-Tu. The huge palace stood alone in the center of Shungjing City, on the crisscrossing central axis. Surrounding the Earth Temple was a huge square covered with white snow. The length and width of the square were about 2 kilometers each. It was so empty that it looked very abrupt. The periphery of the square was tightly isolated by a circle of walls. Shadow squatted on the dark tide, grinning, but his eyes were a little solemn as he said, "According to rumors, this guy can kill people with the power of curse. Anyone who is locked by her will die." Mietong said in a deep voice, "The stronger the power, the more constraints there are. Unless her ability level has far exceeded ours, it is impossible for her to kill the two of us instantly." Shadow said, "The operation of the curse must have a medium. So, just don't get close to that area." As soon as Shadow finished speaking, a large number of shadow giants with a height of hundreds of meters walked out of the dark tide under his feet. One by one, the shadow giants, like hills, walked towards the wall of the Earth Temple with firm steps. They gradually closed in and soon surrounded the entire Earth Temple. Chapter 1655, Impermanence Claims Life. Guanlongyue stood in the Earth Temple, her eyes flashing with strange black light. Even though she was separated by the hall, she could see everything clearly. Yuying and Nietong did not dare to approach, but tried to launch a long-range attack from a distance to wipe out this mysterious existence. The third year after the end of the world, Guanlongyue only took action twice in the official records. The first time, she saved the Shung district at the beginning of its establishment and wiped out a rebellious genius in the Shung district. The second time, she took action against Zhang Yi from thousands of kilometers away. So to this day, her legend has become particularly hazy, and no one knows her true strength, and no one understands her true ability. Yuying and Nietong did not dare to be arrogant at all. Even if it was 2 against 1, they were extremely cautious. Yuying gently raised his right hand, and at this time, hundreds of shadow giants had formed an airtight black wall, which surrounded the entire Earth Temple from a high position. The shadow's right hand was slender, and the pale fingers were like 5 long chopsticks. He gently snapped his fingers towards the Earth Temple in the distant direction. Holy Spirit chant. As soon as he finished speaking, the hundreds of huge shadow giants slowly opened their huge mouths towards the Earth Temple. Hundreds of blood-red energy beams condensed in their mouths, and the majestic power gathered and quickly turned into huge energy balls. These balls became larger and larger, turning the sky around the Earth Temple into red. The overwhelming momentum oppressed the surrounding air and made it dare not make a hum. Even the most fierce north wind was suppressed and deadly, but there was only a breath of death in the air that was about to destroy the entire central area of Shungjing City. Destroy it, the shadow said coldly.
Boom, boom, boom.
Almost at the same time, hundreds of shadow giants shot out red energy cannons that penetrated the space at the same time, and hundreds of red beams were pointing to the Earth Temple where Guanlongyue was. Guanlongyue's face was expressionless. She just stood quietly in the center of the hall. The terrifying energy gathered in one place, and in an instant it burst out with suffocating power. But before the vast energy hit the Earth Temple, it was suddenly blocked by an invisible barrier. In the sky, as the red beams spread, a transparent hemispherical barrier gradually appeared. Because of the existence of this barrier, the Holy Spirit chanting of the shadow had no effect at all. The shadow's brows frowned immediately. The telekinetic barrier. This should be the ability of another superpower in Shungjing City. Didn't he leave? They did not find Shang Daowen's breath. If Shang Daowen and Guanlongyue were both in Shungjing, then they had no reason to avoid it, but should have chosen to protect Shungjing City from the beginning. Nietong saw the truth. He said, it is an inherent barrier that was set up in advance with their abilities. Of course, they will spend a lot of effort to protect Ho Tuesday. Is that so? Yuying sneered. Then, just break this inherent barrier. Nietong said nothing, but his hands began to condense a large amount of supernatural power, directly forming an extremely large energy cannon. The simplest and purest means of attacking by releasing the system, without any fancy. A huge energy cannon went straight to the telekinetic barrier in the distance, falling like a comet to the ground. The energy cannon landed on the telekinetic barrier, and the originally tough barrier finally showed a crack. With the outbreak of terrifying power, it swept in all directions, and the barrier was finally broken by Yuying and Nietong. But at this moment, Guanlongyue, who was standing in the center of the Earth Temple, slowly raised her right hand. In her palm, she held the puppets of the 2 people. Impermanence goes to the soul. After the voice fell, her right hand suddenly loosened, and the 2 puppets fell to the ground. A large shadow appeared under her feet, and the puppet fell into the shadow, like a mud cow falling into the sea, without splashing the slightest ripple. But soon, 2 huge ghosts appeared from the shadow. They wore pointed hats, were several feet tall, one black and one white, holding soul-catching chains and mourning sticks in their hands, with expressions on their faces that seemed to be smiling or crying. The moment the two ghosts appeared, Yueying and Nietong in the distance seemed to feel some kind of cause and effect appearing on them. In the dark, they seemed to be locked by something. Is this the ability of Ho-Tu, the trump card of Shungjing district? Yueying and Nietong lowered their heads. They heard the sound of chains. From the distant void, long and thick chains quickly spread out and tied them to their bodies. Hee.
Woo.
Woo. There were bursts of ghost cries in the air, and the gray mist began to cover the space around them, making the surrounding area look like a ghost den. Although they were thousands of meters away, the two huge ghosts appeared in front of them in an instant. The pressure on Nietong and Yueying became even stronger. The shadows summoned a large number of shadow giants to block the two of them. But the black and white impermanence passed through the shadow giants and floated towards them. Nietong frowned and immediately clenched his palms like eagle claws. Two powerful energy cannons condensed in his palms and shot at the black and white impermanence's body. But they were like virtual things, completely ignoring all attacks. After the two's attacks failed, the black and white impermanence had already killed them. Hua-la-la. The chain sounded. The power of the law of cause and effect could not be measured by common sense, and the black and white impermanence stood behind them, and the chains in their hands bound them tightly. Only then did the shadow and Nietong realize that their hands and feet were as heavy as 1,000 pounds, and they couldn't move at all. Two huge ghosts stood behind them, looking at them with a smile or a cry. Then the morning sticks smashed down on their heads. At the critical moment of life and death, the two did not dare to be arrogant at all, and immediately burst out their powerful superpowers. The shadow giant attacked the black and white impermanence frantically, and the body of the destroyer released terrifying energy from the inside out. But all this could not stop the falling of the morning stick. Bang! Bang! The morning stick hit the two people directly, and a look of surprise flashed in their pupils. But then, the black and white impermanence disappeared in the air. The bodies of the two people fell directly to the ground. Their eyes were dazed. Their faces were pale, and they felt as if something was pulled out of their bodies.